A silent stone giant stares across an empty desert, waiting for a guest who will never come. These abandoned statues are monuments to things that never arrived, and they hold profound secrets about human nature. By the end of our journey, you will understand why we build permanent homes for our most temporary hopes. We will uncover why a civilization would carve a prophet for a messiah who never appeared, and what drove a city to build a cheering crowd for a fleet of ships lost at sea. These stone sentinels are more than forgotten art. They are mirrors reflecting our own deepest yearnings. What do you think it means to wait for something forever? A monument built in anticipation is a promise carved in stone, a physical wager placed on an uncertain future. It stands in stark contrast to a memorial, which honors a past that is already known and settled. These anticipatory structures are not built to remember, but to wait. They are born from a powerful, often urgent, need to prepare for a specific arrival, whether it is a prophesied messiah, a returning fleet, or a golden age foretold by the stars. This purpose embeds a narrative of expectation directly into their foundations, making them permanent placeholders for an event that may never occur. The drive to create them can spring from deep cultural faith, from the political need to project an image of inevitable victory, or from the raw, desperate hope of a people facing uncertainty. Experts in a field known as archaeopsychology, which studies the minds of past cultures through their artifacts, see these statues as the ultimate expression of collective yearning. They are a society's anxiety or its most fervent aspiration, given a permanent, unblinking form. To build so grandly for something that is not yet real is a breathtaking act of optimism. It is a declaration that the future we desire is so certain, it deserves a home made of granite and bronze. Yet, this very act also seeds the potential for a profound and lasting disappointment, a silent echo of a hope that was never fulfilled. This foundational tension between our grandest dreams and a reality that often ignores them is the silent story whispered by every statue we are about to encounter. Carved from a single, towering spire of sandstone, the Watcher of the Wasteland stands as a silent plea against an unending blue sky. Its form is humanoid but immense, a giant whose outstretched palms seem to beg the heavens for a deliverance that never fell. The local legends are sparse, passed down through fragments, but they tell of a tribe that saw their world drying up around them. Rivers shrank to dust, and the earth cracked into a mosaic of despair. Into this desperation, a prophecy was born, a belief that a sky god would one day descend, bringing life-giving rains to quench the parched land. The Watcher was their invitation, a permanent, physical prayer meant to guide the deity home. What makes this statue so profoundly moving is the incredible care taken in its creation, especially the eyes. Archaeologists who have studied the site remark that the sockets are deeply carved and meticulously shaped, with fine lines suggesting eyelids and a focused gaze. This was not a generic idol, it was a portrait crafted for a specific being they believed was coming. The tribe poured their finest artistry into ensuring their god would be recognized, that it would see a familiar face looking back and know it had reached its people. This detail transforms the statue from a simple monument into a heartbreaking act of welcome. You can almost feel the collective hope of the community, looking up at their creation and seeing their own faith reflected back at them. But the clouds never gathered, the rains never came. The evidence of their ultimate fate lies scattered around the statue's base, the remains of a settlement that slowly emptied. Pottery shards, the foundations of simple homes, all gradually reclaimed by the shifting sands. They stayed as long as they could, their eyes shifting between the horizon and their stone sentinel, until the struggle for mere survival forced them to abandon their hope along with their homes. They left the Watcher behind, the one piece of their culture too massive to take, a permanent resident of a faith that turned to dust. This statue is not merely a relic of a forgotten people. It is a monument to ecological hope, a stark reminder that our grandest beliefs are often anchored in the most basic human needs for water, for food, for a world that can sustain us. From this solitary figure awaiting a celestial savior, we find a parallel in a monument built for an arrival from the sea. The sea has claimed half of this bronze sentinel, its legs forever anchored in the tidal wash while its torso remains proud against the sky. This is the sentinel of the sunken city, a colossal figure gazing eternally over the waves for a fleet of explorer kings lost to history. The city that built it was a hub of maritime ambition, its wealth and identity staked on the success of a single, grand voyage to discover a mythical western continent. They were so certain of their ruler's triumphant return, bearing untold wealth and revolutionary knowledge, that they commissioned this giant to be the first welcome, a monumental greeting committee of one. Marine historians have analyzed the statue's metal, and the corrosion tells a silent, scientific story. The specific pitting and wear on its seaward side confirm it has never turned, never shifted its gaze from that single, empty point on the horizon for century upon century. Its posture is one of unwavering expectation. Its features, though weathered by salt and relentless wind, still hold the regal authority of a kingdom waiting for its crown to return. This creates a devastating contrast with its surroundings, where the foundations of the city itself are now just vague outlines beneath the water, a ghost of a community that literally drowned in its own anticipation. What were they thinking as the years stretched into decades with no sign of their ships? Did they ever stop looking out from the shore, their eyes joining the statue's unblinking vigil? This figure is a monument to the immense risks of grand ventures, to the thin line between legendary discovery and utter oblivion. It reminds us that for every success story that fills our history books, there are countless others that ended in silent disaster, remembered only by a lonely, waiting giant. From this drowned hope by the sea, our journey now climbs high into the thin, cold air of the mountains. High on a wind-scoured peak where the air grows thin, the Granite Prophet sits in eternal silence. This figure, hewn from the mountain itself, was not built for a god or a king, but for a student. A secluded monastic order dedicated their entire existence to a prophecy that an enlightened being would one day climb this impossible summit. They believed this individual would not be a celestial figure, but a human who had achieved the ultimate state of understanding, and that from this very spot, they would deliver a final, unifying truth to the world below. The statue's closed eyes and serene meditation pose capture a moment of perfect readiness, as if listening intently for a wisdom that hangs just beyond human perception. Scholars who study these patterns of belief refer to this as apocalyptic faith, but not in the sense of fire and destruction. This was a quiet apocalypse, a hope for a single, clarifying idea that would resolve all earthly suffering and confusion. The monastery ruins nestled on the slopes below tell a story of profound commitment. The cells are bare, the spaces for communal living are stark and simple. Every aspect of their daily life, from their sparse meals to their hours of meditation, was a form of preparation. They were not just waiting, they were purifying themselves to be a worthy audience for a revelation. This makes the statue's endless vigil so poignant. It is not merely an empty seat, it is the symbol of a question that was asked with every fiber of their being, but never answered. The sheer physical challenge of its location speaks volumes. Every block of granite, every tool had to be carried up a brutal path. This was not an act of convenience, but one of supreme devotion. They built a throne for wisdom at the top of the world, convinced that the difficulty of the journey would be part of the revelation itself. In the end, the order dwindled, their strict routine unable to sustain new generations waiting for a promise that never materialized. The Granite Prophet remains a monument to the human spirit's capacity to invest everything in a single, fragile hope. This profound search for a spiritual arrival finds a strange and modern echo in our next story, a monument not to a person, but to a machine that was meant to save us all. The Iron Guardian stands rigid in the shadow of its silent, decaying charge. This stark figure of welded steel plates was built not for a messiah or a king, but for a machine, a promised clean energy core that would render the aging nuclear reactor beside it obsolete and perfectly safe. During the Atomic Age's peak, this was the pinnacle of human optimism, a belief that every problem technology created, a newer, brighter technology would inevitably solve. The Guardian's design is brutally functional, all sharp angles and industrial simplicity, a stark contrast to the ornate prophets and kings of old. It was not meant to inspire awe through beauty, but through sheer, confident utility. It faces the main access road, a permanent reception committee for a delivery truck that never turned off the highway. Historians of science see this statue as a perfect artifact of technological hubris. It captures that brief, dazzling moment when humanity believed it was mere years away from unlocking limitless, safe power, a future where energy worries would vanish forever. The Guardian was built to mark that imminent transition, a metallic bookmark placed at the moment everything would change for the better. But the breakthrough never came. The clean energy core remained a blueprint, a theoretical solution that failed to materialize. Now the Guardian's vigil is layered with a profound, post-apocalyptic irony. The land around it, once a hub of human industry, is an exclusion zone slowly being reclaimed by nature. Weeds push through cracked concrete, and animals roam where engineers once walked. The statue, a symbol of a future that was cancelled, now overlooks a landscape returning to the past. This shift from ancient faith to failed modern prophecy is jarring. It reveals that our need to build for our hopes is a constant, whether those hopes are for a rain god or a technological miracle. The materials change from stone to steel, but the weighting remains the same. This particular blend of anticipation and ideology finds an even sharper expression in our next statue, a monument born not from scientific hope, but from pure political fervor. The Marble Tribune's open mouth seems to whisper to an empty city square, a speech forever frozen in its first breath. This statue was the centerpiece of a revolution's most fervent dream, carved to welcome back an exiled leader who promised to return and build a perfect republic from the ashes of the old regime. The city buzzed with anticipation, the plaza prepared for the grand celebration that would mark the dawn of their new age. But the leader's ship was lost in a storm, and the promised return became a permanent absence. Now the Tribune stands alone, its raised arm forever gesturing to a crowd that never assembled. Political theorists see this as a profound lesson in the fragility of political hope. A revolution can overthrow a government in a moment, but building a new society is a slower, more fragile process, one that can be shattered by a single, unforeseen event. The statue is a perfect symbol of a cult of personality, where the entire identity of a new political movement became invested in one individual. When that individual vanished, the movement was left with all its powerful symbols, like this magnificent marble figure, but with none of the substance that gave them meaning. Look at the details, the meticulously carved toga, the intense expression on its face. This was not a generic monument. It was a portrait of a specific, awaited moment of triumph, a celebration that instantly transformed into a permanent memorial. The empty benches and silent fountains that surround it do not just signify a lack of people. They represent the silence that follows a broken promise, the hollow echo of a political dream forever deferred. It makes you wonder how many ideals are left stranded, waiting for a leader who will never come to give them voice. This earthly hope for a political savior finds a strange and beautiful mirror in our next statue, which turned its gaze not to the sea or a city avenue, but to the stars themselves. Its stone eyes are locked on a patch of sky that appears no different from any other. This is the Stone Astronomer, the silent heart of a ruined academy, built by scholars who believed the universe was about to speak to them. Their entire discipline was focused on a singular, predicted event, a grand convergence of planets that their complex calculations told them would not just be a visual spectacle, but a cosmic trigger. They were convinced this alignment would unlock a new era of human understanding, bathing the world in a wave of pure, celestial wisdom. The statue was their tribute to this imminent enlightenment, a permanent scholar carved to witness the moment everything changed. Modern archaeoastronomers, scientists who study the astronomy of ancient cultures, have used sophisticated software to map the night sky as it was centuries ago. Their findings are both impressive and deeply poignant. The Stone Astronomer's gaze is not random, it is pinpoint accurate, aimed directly at the exact spot where that predicted planetary meeting occurred. The builders were not just stargazers, they were brilliant mathematicians who correctly forecast a real astronomical event. Their failure was not in their calculations, but in their interpretation. The planets aligned in a silent, beautiful dance, and then they continued on their paths. The world did not transform. No wave of wisdom washed over humanity. The grand revelation they had staked their entire identity on was, in the end, just physics. The statue, therefore, becomes something far more profound than a monument to a mistake. It is a testament to the human need to find a script in the stars, to believe that the cosmos is not just a random collection of lights, but a map with directions for our own lives. The quiet dignity of the Stone Astronomer lies in its endless vigil. It continues its observation long after the theory it was built to celebrate has turned to dust. The wind now whispers through the empty lecture halls where those scholars once debated. The complex star charts they painstakingly drew are now just faint scratches on broken stone. All that remains is this single, unwavering focus, a reminder that our search for answers is often more beautiful than the answers we hope to find. This grand, cosmic yearning for a sign finds a much more intimate, and in some ways more painful, echo in a statue built not for a civilization or an academy, but for one lonely heart. Her silhouette is a permanent feature of the coastal storm, a woman carved from grief-gray stone facing the endless churn of the ocean. This is the lover's sentinel, and her story is not one of gods or kings, but of a single, shattered promise. A wealthy merchant, embarking on what he swore would be his final voyage, commissioned this statue himself. He left his beloved with detailed plans and his entire fortune, instructing her to build this figure so she would never wait alone, a testament that his thoughts were always with her, even across the waves. The cruel irony is that the statue was completed, a perfect and permanent representation of his devotion, just as the news arrived that his ship had been taken by a hurricane. He had built his own memorial and her, a companion for an eternal vigil. The lighthouse they built together, meant to guide him home, eventually fell dark, its mechanism rusting into silence. Now the Sentinel waits in perpetual darkness, a detail that makes her story almost unbearably intimate. This is not a civilization waiting for a messiah. but one person waiting for another, a love story fossilized into legend. The local tales say her voice still carries on the thick sea fog, a whisper lost in the wind. This ghost story persists because it speaks to a universal fear, the fear of being the one left behind, forever watching an empty horizon. This profound sense of personal absence finds a terrifying parallel in a statue that represents not a missing person, but an entire missing world. Its armor is engraved with scenes of shared hunts and feasts that were never held. This is the forgotten Dynasty's Gatekeeper, a warrior frozen in a moment of anticipated peace, its ceremonial weapon still raised in a salute for allies who became enemies. The story begins with a hard-won treaty between two rival empires, a fragile agreement meant to end generations of bloodshed. As a grand gesture, one empire constructed an entire new wing to its imperial palace, with this magnificent gatekeeper as its centerpiece. It was designed to honor the visiting emissaries, a symbol of respect so profound it was carved in stone. Every detail, from the polished jade inlay on the hilt of its sword to the intricate carvings on its breastplate depicting joint victories, was meant to flatter and welcome. The statue was a promise of a new era, a future where these two powers would stand together. But the future is a fluid, unpredictable thing. A sudden war erupted with a third, unexpected kingdom, forcing the empire that built the statue into a desperate, immediate alliance with its old rival against this new threat. The diplomatic visit was cancelled not out of malice but out of sheer necessity. The emissaries who were meant to be honored guests were now military allies, and their journey to see the Gatekeeper built for them was forever postponed in the chaos of a new war. The statue, however, could not adapt. It remained a permanent sentinel for a single, cancelled event. Historians see this as a stark lesson in the volatility of human agreements. A treaty carved in stone is still hostage to the shifting sands of political necessity. The Gatekeeper's fierce expression, once meant to convey strength and honor to a respected equal, now seems to glare at an empty courtyard, a monument to a friendship that was forged in crisis rather than ceremony. Its story asks us a difficult question. How many of our grandest gestures, our most permanent symbols, are built for a world that changes before the mortar has even dried? This stone warrior, forever waiting for a peaceful delegation, finds a strange parallel in our next statue, which was built not for diplomats or kings, but for a creature of pure myth. Deep in the shadowy embrace of the Black Gorge, the Beast Tamer strains forever against nothing. This muscular hero, his face a mask of frozen effort, grapples with a creature of pure legend, a beast prophesied to rise from the local caves and be subdued by a chosen champion. The community prepared for this confrontation for generations, selecting their hero and carving his victory in stone before the fight had even begun. They were so convinced by their own stories, so embedded in the folklore, that they built the trophy for a battle that was never meant to happen. Anthropologists call this mythopoeic architecture, the fascinating process where a culture constructs physical spaces and objects to interact with their own invented narratives. It is not merely art, it is a way of making a story solid, of trying to force a legend into reality through sheer will and stone. The most powerful part of the entire composition is the empty space between the tamer's hands. That void is the entire point. It forces you, the observer, to complete the sculpture with your own mind, to imagine the scales, the claws, the snarling jaw of the monster that never was. This statue is a monument to the incredible power of narrative, a testament to the idea that a story told fervently enough can inspire the creation of a mountain. What does it say about us that we would rather build for a thrilling fiction than for a mundane truth? The community likely dispersed, their shared identity, so tied to this impending mythical event, slowly unraveling when the beast failed to keep its appointment with destiny. The Beast Tamer remains a hero forever defined by the absence of his foe. This human compulsion to build for a story finds its ultimate expression in our final statue, a monument awaiting a messenger not from caves but from heaven itself. Two stone giants stand frozen, their colossal forms creating a perfect arch over a road that dissolves into wilderness. This is the Herald's Archway, a gateway built not for kings or armies, but for a single, soundless moment of divine contact. The civilization that raised these monuments lived in a state of breathless anticipation, convinced that a herald from the heavens would one day walk this very path. Their purpose was to flank this celestial messenger, to provide a fitting entrance as it descended to deliver a sacred message to a prophet living among them. The statues are captured in a moment of perpetual readiness, with massive trumpets raised to their lips, their chests expanded as if holding the breath before a world-shaking blast. That announcement, the fanfare meant to herald a new age, remains eternally trapped in stone. Theologians see this as the ultimate expression of a concept known as open revelation, the belief that the divine is not silent or distant, but is constantly on the verge of speaking. This faith is so powerful, so immediate, that it demands a physical space for the event to occur. The Archway is that space, a permanent docking station for a voice from beyond. And yet the story holds a deeply human tragedy. The chosen prophet, the man who was meant to receive this message, grew old and died waiting. The path was prepared, the heralds were in place, but the message itself never arrived. Now the Archway frames only the empty sky, a beautiful, heartbreaking monument to a conversation that never began. What does it mean to build a doorway for a guest who never knocks? The sheer, overwhelming scale of the effort speaks to a faith so vast it could only be expressed in mountains of stone. This profound yearning for a word from the divine finds a powerful and very different echo in a statue built for a hero who is supposed to return from war. The cheers are frozen in their throats, a whole city's joy petrified into an eternal, silent welcome. In a harbor now choked with silt, a crowd of stone citizens leans toward the sea, their faces alight with a celebration for a victory that turned to ash. They were built to welcome home a legendary naval commander, a hero who had just vanquished a terrifying pirate armada that had plagued the coast for a generation. The entire kingdom was certain of his triumphant return, and they carved this permanent greeting party so his fleet would see their gratitude from the water. The statues are a snapshot of pure, untainted anticipation, their arms raised in waves, their mouths open in what should be a deafening roar of pride and relief. But the commander and his entire fleet were swallowed by a sudden, brutal storm just days from home, a cruel twist of fate that transformed this monument to victory into a heartbreaking memorial for loss. Maritime historians point to this site as the ultimate testament to the sea's fickle nature. It reminds us that the ocean does not care about your victories or your homecoming, that the line between legend and tragedy can be as thin as a change in the wind. The emotional power here lies in the statue's ignorance. They are forever locked in that perfect, hopeful moment before the news arrived, their stone eyes blind to the empty horizon they greet. You stand before them and feel the weight of that collective grief, the entire emotional trajectory of a people going from the highest peak of expectation to the deepest pit of despair, all captured in this single, silent tableau. This collective vigil for a lost hero gives way to a much more personal, and in some ways even more haunting, figure of anticipation. The sage's stone fingers rest on pages that hold no words, an open book of pure potential in a hall charred by fire. This is the sage of the silent library, a figure placed in the grandest reading chamber not to honor a past thinker, but to welcome a future one, a complex prophecy cherished by the library's guardians, foretold the arrival of a single individual, the last scholar, who would possess the unique intellect to decipher the institution's ultimate treasure, a final secret text hidden in plain sight. The statue was their act of profound faith in this prophecy, a permanent seat prepared for the mind that would complete their entire pursuit of knowledge. The invaders who stormed the gates were not interested in prophecies or secrets. They sought treasure and conquest, and to them, the vast collection of scrolls and codices was just so much kindling. The library was sacked and set ablaze, its accumulated wisdom turning to smoke and ash long before the fabled scholar could ever step through the entrance. Now the sage waits in a hall of ghosts, its blank book a heartbreaking paradox. The library's greatest secret was not a specific text, but the idea of a final, unifying truth, a single answer that would make sense of everything else. The blank pages are a masterstroke, a representation of that which cannot yet be known. It is a riddle carved in stone, asking what we are even looking for when we seek ultimate knowledge. This statue speaks directly to our own time, an age drowning in information yet often starving for wisdom. It makes you wonder about the countless discoveries, the brilliant ideas, and the entire schools of thought that have been lost to the random violence of history. What if the key to a lasting peace or the cure for a terrible plague turned to ash in a library like this one? The sage's endless vigil is a monument to every unanswered question, a silent tribute to the fragile thread upon which human understanding hangs. From this profound sense of lost knowledge, our journey moves from the quiet of a burned library to the raw edge of the earth, where a statue was built not for a person or a secret, but for a cataclysm that never arrived. Its stone basket is forever empty, held in the gentle hands of a gardener who waits in a field of dust. This is the Bloom Watcher of Petal Valley, a delicate figure carved from a single block of white marble, standing sentinel over a landscape that has been barren for centuries. The civilization that placed it here was a horticultural cult, a society that worshipped a mythical flower they called the Sun Tear. Their prophecy was precise and beautiful, foretelling a 1,000-year bloom, a single night when this legendary flower would erupt from the valley floor, its nectar offering the gift of immortality to those pure enough to gather it. The Bloom Watcher was their act of perfect faith, a permanent harvester built to be ready for that divine moment. The statue's posture is one of serene patience, its head tilted as if listening for the first crack of a sprout pushing through the earth. You can see the careful craftsmanship in the folds of its robe and the delicate fingers curled around the basket's handle, a testament to the tender hope they felt. This makes the surrounding emptiness so devastating. The valley is a dry, cracked basin where the only things that grow are tough, gray weeds. Archaeologists who have taken soil samples confirm the heartbreaking truth. There is no evidence, no fossilized pollen, to suggest a flower of such mythical grandeur ever existed here. The bloom was either a complete myth from the start, or the plant went extinct long before this civilization ever arose, its legend outliving its reality. This statue, then, becomes a perfect symbol of how human desire can project miraculous properties onto the natural world. We see a plant and dream it can cure death. We look at a barren valley and envision a garden of eternal life. The Bloom Watcher is the physical evidence of that longing, a dream of immortality given a gentle, stone form. Its endless vigil asks us a difficult question about our own relationship with nature. How often do we see what we want to see in the world around us, rather than what is actually there? This floral fantasy, rooted in a hope for eternal life, gives way to a monument of a very different kind of anticipation, one forged not from marble but from iron and steam. Its head is cocked toward an empty dry dock, a silent auditorium for a mechanical symphony that was never played. The engine singer stands as a sleek, metallic ghost, its form a cascade of Art Deco curves that once embodied the height of industrial glamour. This was not built for a person or a prophecy, but for a sound, the promised harmonious song of a revolutionary ocean liner's engine. The entire shipyard was a stage for this coming marvel, a vessel so advanced its power plant was said to produce not a jarring roar, but a complex, almost musical chord. The statue was the audience for this mechanical opera, its posture one of attentive anticipation, forever waiting for the first note to ring out across the water. That note never came. The company's finances collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. The blueprints for the miraculous engine were filed away and forgotten, and the dry dock remained a hollow, concrete shell. The engine singer now listens to the wind whistling through rusted gantries and the distant cry of gulls, a perfect monument to the fragile alliance of capital and creativity. It represents the graveyard of potential, the countless inventions and industries that died on the drawing board, victims of a missed payment or a shift in the market. This statue's modernist lines, once so forward-looking, now appear dated, a relic of a specific future that was confidently predicted but never arrived. It makes you wonder about the parallel world of technology we might be living in, a world filled with the hum of engines that sing and the glow of cities powered by breakthroughs that, in our reality, simply ran out of money. From this silence where industry promised music, we find a statue that was built for a very different kind of song. Its arms are forever raised in that breathless pause before the first note, a conductor without an orchestra in an amphitheater of perfect silence. The chorus master stands at the heart of a stone bowl designed to capture and amplify the most delicate of sounds, a venue built for a single, celestial performance. The prophecy was clear and beautiful, a promise that a choir of heavenly voices would one day descend to sing a song of such pure, vibrational harmony that it would literally mend the broken, curing all illness and driving sorrow from the world. The statue was their act of preparation, a permanent conductor ready to guide this divine symphony. The performance date was calculated, marked on sacred calendars, and awaited with a hope so tangible you can almost feel it in the air. But the day arrived, the amphitheater filled with the hopeful and the infirm, and the skies offered only silence. The music never fell. What remains is perhaps the most haunting absence of all, because the acoustics of the place are, by all technical measures, flawless. A whisper from the center can be heard clearly in the highest seat. A single dropped pin creates a ripple of sound. This perfection makes the void left by the promised choir almost audible. You stand there and your mind tries to fill the silence, creating a phantom performance that is all the more painful for its imagined beauty. Ethnomusicologists who study the role of music in human cultures point to this site as the ultimate expression of a universal belief in music's transformative, almost magical power. Across history, we have used drumming for healing, chanting for spiritual connection, and melodies to soothe the soul. The chorus master represents the yearning for that power to be made absolute, for a single, perfect song to erase the fundamental pains of existence. It is a monument to the desire for a simple, beautiful solution to suffering, a solution that requires no medicine, no struggle, just the act of listening. But the silence that answered them speaks a different truth, that some pains are too complex to be solved by a single melody, no matter how divine. This silent symphony, this cure that never was, guides us toward a final, profound statue built not for a song or a savior, but for an entire age of peace that never dawned. Two stone hands reach toward each other, forever separated by a few inches of empty air. This is the Peace Weaver, a monument to a promise that shattered, standing at a border crossing where weeds now push through cracked asphalt. It depicts a man and a woman from two rival nations, each offering the other a delicate olive branch, their faces etched with a cautious hope. This statue was the centerpiece of a so-called perpetual peace treaty, a grand declaration that ended a century of bloodshed. The road it faces was meant to become a river of shared life, bustling with festivals, markets, and intermingled families. For a few brief years, that dream felt real. Then a new political faction rose, old grievances were deliberately stoked, and the border was slammed shut, the peace lasting less than a decade. The most heartbreaking detail is in the craftsmanship. The figures' robes are carved with intricate patterns, a beautiful, deliberate fusion of artistic styles from both cultures. On one figure, you see the geometric precision of the northern artisans, and on the other, the flowing floral motifs of the south, each pattern weaving into the other's garment. This was not just a statue of two people, it was a symbol of a hoped-for synthesis, a new, blended identity that was being born. That identity was aborted before it could take its first breath. Now the Peace Weaver performs its graceful, generous gesture to an empty, overgrown no-man's land, a field of silence between two nations that have returned to watching each other with suspicion. It is both a warning and a stubborn flicker of hope, a warning that no peace, no matter how beautifully carved in stone, is truly perpetual, and a hope because the statue itself remains, a physical testament to the fact that the gesture was once made, that the branches were once offered. It proves that the impulse for unity is as much a part of our nature as the impulse for conflict. This abandoned handshake at a closed border makes you wonder how many times we have come so close to a better world, only to turn back at the final moment. From this sobering vision of a peace that failed, we turn to a monument built for an entire era of prosperity that never began. Its arms are spread wide as if to embrace the sun itself, a solitary figure on a wind-whipped ridge greeting the same dawn it has welcomed for centuries. The Dawnbringer is a monument to a profound miscalculation, built by a civilization of brilliant astronomers who were certain they had pinpointed the exact sunrise that would herald a new astrological age. Their complex charts and celestial observations told them that on one specific morning, the world would cross an invisible threshold, leaving behind an era of strife and entering a golden age of enlightenment and boundless prosperity. This statue was their grand welcome for that new world, a permanent gesture of reception for a transformed reality. They oriented its entire form with incredible precision, ensuring it would catch the very first ray of that prophesied dawn, a beam of light they believed would carry a wave of cosmic change. But the sun rose that morning just as it had the morning before, and just as it has every morning since. The light touched the stone, but the world remained stubbornly, mundanely the same. The promised transformation was a no-show. This highlights a deeply human pattern, our tendency to seek cosmic validation for our own existence, to project our deepest hopes for peace and progress onto the indifferent mechanics of the universe. We yearn for the stars to tell us we are special, that our time is significant, that a new chapter is beginning. The Dawnbringer's endless, beautiful, and ultimately routine vigil is a quiet lesson in finding significance in the ordinary. It stands there, bathed in the same glorious light every single day, a testament to the fact that the extraordinary we seek might not arrive in a single, cataclysmic sunrise, but is perhaps hidden within the simple, consistent beauty of the world we already inhabit. This celestial disappointment, this hope for a royal decree from the universe itself, finds a very earthly parallel in a statue built for a returning monarch. A single figure kneels in eternal deference along a forgotten avenue, a jeweled crown of stone held out on a velvet cushion of rock. This is the crown holder, a steward frozen in a moment of transfer, placed here to perform a single, sacred duty for a queen who would never arrive. The story begins with a kingdom in turmoil, a rebellion threatening to topple the throne. In a desperate act to preserve the royal line, the young queen was smuggled out of the capital and sent to a distant, allied nation for her own protection. The plan was temporary, a strategic retreat. The crown holder was carved and placed along the royal road as a promise, a physical guarantee that the path home was still open and that her coronation was merely postponed, not cancelled. Every detail of the statue, from the subservient bow of its head to the intricate carvings of gems on the crown, was meant to reinforce the legitimacy and continuity of the monarchy. It was a symbol that the system itself was waiting for her, ready to resume its natural order. But political realities are merciless. The rebellion did not falter. It triumphed completely, abolishing the monarchy and establishing a new form of government. The promise made to the young queen became impossible to keep. The road she was meant to travel home was barricaded, not with wood and steel, but with new laws and a new national identity. This leaves the crown holder in a state of profound absurdity. It offers a symbol of authority that no longer holds any legal power, a crown for a throne that no longer exists. The statue becomes a monument to a broken chain of command, a gesture of loyalty with no one left to receive it. The crown itself, so meticulously carved, is the focal point of the tragedy. It represents not just a person but an entire political theology, a belief in the divine right of kings and the unbroken passage of power from one ruler to the next. That belief was rendered obsolete in a matter of months, leaving the stone crown as a beautiful, empty shell. What does it mean to kneel before a power that has vanished? The crown holder's endless vigil is a quiet lesson in the fragility of political structures. It reminds us that every crown, every scepter, every symbol of rule derives its power solely from the collective agreement of the people. When that agreement is withdrawn, the most magnificent regalia becomes just an object, and the most loyal servant becomes a statue waiting for a ghost. This poignant image of a power that never returned finds a strange parallel in a statue built not for a queen, but for a discovery that would redefine physics. The young apprentice's crucible is a perfect cup of emptiness, forever tilted toward a shaft of light from a ceiling vent. In the husk of a grand alchemical laboratory, this statue waits for a miracle of science that was promised to rain down gold. The entire order was built around the prophecy of the Great Transmutation, a single, glorious event where base metals would be transformed, filling this very vessel and showering the institution with limitless wealth. The belief was not mere superstition. It was a complex system of thought that blurred the line between early chemistry and spiritual magic. The intricate glass tubes and strange metal apparatus lying broken around the statue were not just tools. They were components of a grand ritual, a physical prayer meant to manipulate the very essence of matter itself. This figure embodies the thrilling, often heartbreaking, pursuit of a scientific holy grail. For generations, brilliant minds dedicated their lives to this single problem, convinced the secret lay just one more experiment away. The empty crucible is their legacy, a testament to a quest that captivated countless souls but ultimately remained just beyond human grasp. It makes you wonder about our own modern versions of this pursuit. Are we, in our own labs, tilting our own crucibles toward a breakthrough in immortality, in limitless clean energy, or in understanding consciousness with the same fervent hope? The alchemist's dream was not just about gold, it was about ultimate control over a chaotic universe, a desire that still fuels our greatest scientific ambitions today. This solitary figure, frozen in a moment of anticipated revelation, gives way to our next statue, which represents not the hope of a few scholars, but the collective dream of an entire community. Its slender limbs are forever caught in a spiral of motion, a desperate ballet performed for an audience of cracked earth and a pitiless sky. The rain dancer stands in the heart of a blinding white expanse, a landscape so flat and barren it feels like the end of the world. The civilization that carved it was not waiting for a messiah or a king, they were begging for water. A generation-long drought had turned their world to dust, and in their final, gasping act of hope, they created this statue. They took their most gifted ceremonial dancer and immortalized her in this perfect, fluid form, believing that by placing this ultimate expression of their plea at the drought's very epicenter, they could summon the clouds. It was sympathetic magic of the most poignant kind, an attempt to force nature's hand by presenting it with a reality so beautiful and complete that the rains would have no choice but to comply. The statue's shadow is the only thing that moves, tracing a long, slow circle across the salt every single day. It functions as a sundial in a place where time has lost all meaning, meticulously marking the passage of days, months, and years in a void where the only change is the deepening of cracks in the earth. This daily, silent measurement of an endless weight is what makes the statue almost unbearably human. You can feel the raw vulnerability, the utter exposure of a people who had run out of every other option and could only offer their art to the elements. The community eventually dispersed, their social bonds broken by the struggle for survival, leaving their most beautiful creation behind as a final, unanswered question posed to the heavens. The Rain Dancer is a monument to pure, unadulterated desperation, a physical prayer born from a need so fundamental it transcends culture or creed. This elemental plea, this attempt to command the weather itself, finds a dark counterpart in a statue born not from hope, but from a prophecy of absolute dread. The ornate stone chair sits perfectly vacant, its high back carved with symbols of cosmic order, facing a plane that offers no arrivals. This is the oracle's empty chair, a throne built for a voice that never spoke. A secluded sect known as the Listeners dedicated their entire existence to a single, precise prophecy. Their sacred texts foretold that on a specific equinox, a divine oracle would appear from the wilderness, ascend the dais, and take this seat. From it, she would speak an unbroken stream of divine truth for 1,000 years, answering every question humanity had ever possessed. The Listeners prepared for this moment with meticulous devotion, building not just the chair, but entire libraries of blank scrolls and training generations of scribes whose only purpose was to transcribe this eternal wisdom. The appointed day dawned, the sect gathered in silent anticipation, their eyes fixed on the empty plain. The sun climbed, crossed the sky, and set. The chair remained empty. The prophecy, in its most literal sense, had failed. This is the ultimate expression of the void in prophecy, the stark recognition that the expected vessel for revelation might be nothing but an absence. The chair's own exquisite craftsmanship deepens this emptiness. It is not a rough-hewn bench but a work of art, with intricate inlays and a seat polished by anticipation, meant for a being of unimaginable importance. Its very perfection highlights the totality of the silence. You stand before it, and your mind strains to hear the wisdom that should be echoing from this spot, making the quiet itself feel heavy and significant. This empty seat forces a difficult question about the nature of prophecy itself. Is it a divine promise, or is it a mirror reflecting our own deepest hunger for answers? The Listeners did not just await a person, they awaited the end of all mystery. Their story suggests that perhaps the void is not a failure, but a different kind of message, one that tells us the answers we seek must be found within our own experience, not delivered from a throne. This profound silence, this vacant seat of power, brings us to the final statue on our journey, the one that ties every story together into a single, breathtaking truth. A lone figure stands guard on a secluded shoreline, its silhouette a permanent feature against the endless rhythm of the waves. This is the last sentinel of the final shore, the final statue in our long and poignant journey. It was the personal obsession of a single, reclusive visionary who poured his entire fortune and spirit into its creation. He was a man who believed in a story, a narrative that a fleet of ships carrying the last survivors of a lost, advanced civilization was still out there, navigating the vast ocean. He was convinced they would one day make landfall on this very spot, bringing with them ancient knowledge and forgotten technologies to save humanity from a slow, creeping decline he saw in the world around him. The statue was his beacon, his landing light for this hoped-for armada of salvation. The visionary grew old and passed away, his theories never validated. The predicted decline, if it happened at all, was so gradual it became the new normal, barely noticed by those living through it, and the ships, of course, never appeared on the horizon. This solitary figure, therefore, becomes the ultimate distillation of our entire exploration. It is a lone being, crafted from a potent mixture of profound hope for a better future and a deep, simmering anxiety about the present, waiting at the very edge of the known world for a rescue that exists only in the pages of a story. Its form is simple, unadorned, and profoundly weathered. The salt spray and relentless wind have smoothed its features, erasing the details of its face, as if the sea it watches is slowly claiming it, grain by grain. This is a powerful, silent image of patience, and of the slow, inevitable victory of time and nature over all our grandest expectations and plans. It stands as a quiet bookend to our first statue, the Watcher of the Wasteland. One awaited a god from the sky, the other a savior from the sea. Both were built on the shores of hope, facing an emptiness that ultimately defined them. The act of waiting itself, this final sentinel seems to whisper, can become the most enduring monument of all. These silent stone witnesses, scattered across deserts and coastlines, all share a single, haunting question. Why do we build permanent homes for our most temporary hopes? Psychology offers a compelling answer, suggesting that the act of carving a promise in stone is our attempt to externalize hope itself. An abstract, fluttering feeling inside our chests is given weight, form, and a fixed address in the real world. By making our yearning physical, we grant it a sense of permanence and reality it would otherwise lack. We are trying to pin the butterfly of hope to a board, believing that if we can just see it and touch it, it cannot possibly escape us. These statues exist in a powerful psychological territory known as the liminal space, the threshold between expectation and reality. This is not an empty void, but a place brimming with potential, where stories are crafted and meaning is forged in the white-hot fire of anticipation. It is often in the waiting, in the not knowing, that we feel most alive and most intensely connected to a possibility. Yet these monuments also serve as gentle, stone-carved warnings. They caution us against the danger of mortgaging our entire present happiness on a single, hypothetical future event. They stand as proof that while it is human to dream of a glorious tomorrow, life, in all its messy beauty, can only ever be lived in the constant, fleeting now. From a wider societal view, these structures almost always emerge during periods of immense stress, uncertainty, or transition. When a civilization faces a drought, a political collapse, or a cultural upheaval, the present becomes unbearable. In that pain, a narrative of future salvation becomes a psychological life raft. A society will collectively build a statue for a returning king, a prophesied messiah, or a technological miracle because they desperately need a story that tomorrow will be better than today. This shared project gives a community a common purpose, a focal point for its anxiety, and a reason to keep going. So these are far more than failed projects or forgotten art. They are profound cultural artifacts, each one a mirror reflecting a fundamental aspect of our condition. They show us that our need to hope is so powerful, so essential, that we will literally move mountains to give it a place to live. Our journey past these 22 silent figures reveals a story not of failure, but of something far more profound. Each one, from the Desert Watcher to the oceanside Last Sentinel, stands as a testament to our incredible capacity to believe in a better future, to prepare for miracles with stone and steel, and to leave a permanent mark based on that belief alone. They teach us a quiet lesson that the true value of a monument is not always found in the event it commemorates, but often in the powerful, human story of anticipation it forever embodies. While the specific messiahs, fleets, and revelations they awaited never came to pass, their very existence has become a different kind of arrival. These statues have arrived in our collective consciousness, transforming from abandoned hopes into universal symbols of patience, ambition, and the poignant beauty of things left unfinished. They ask us to reflect on our own lives, to build and live fully in the present moment, even as we nurture our hopes for what is yet to come. If these stories of silent waiting have resonated with you, we would love to hear which statue moved you the most in the comments below. And for more journeys into the world's forgotten corners, feel free to subscribe.